Hi everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited. It is another Marathon Sewciety Sewing Marathon here on YouTube. And I am so honored because today we are sewing up my own pattern. This is called the Eileen Pool Tote. It's named after my mom. I spent so many summers with my mom at the beach in the pool. So it's definitely in her honor. This one here is not what I am sewing up today. I want to show you the original, and this bag is actually the one that I have a tutorial for on my channel already. So it's quite a large bag. It has a box bottom. One side has some mesh pockets and a clear slip pocket and a zipper slip combo on the back. And then inside there is a slip pocket and a zipper pocket. And it includes 2 handles and then also a crossbody. So this is the original pattern, which I do have the tutorial for, so I will link that. So today I wanted to show you how you could adapt it and have some fun with it. So this is completely modified. It does not have any vinyl on the bottom. I used our Majestic nylon for the exterior. It is the fabric. It's like a bonded nylon that is waterproof, wrinkle-proof as long as it's not interfaced. So I did not use any interfacing, and I didn't put the vinyl for the bottom. So you can see that it goes all the way down to the bottom. And instead of a mesh pocket with a clear slip pocket and a zipper pocket, I just chose to put mesh pockets all the way around. The front and the back of the bag are the exact same. And then this decorative strip here is webbing. That's just hiding the bottom of the straps and holding our pockets in place since we are not using that vinyl piece. So all the adaptions, I will put the measurements and the changes in the description. There's 2 other things that I did. I created a recessed zipper. So I show you how to make that here with the long tail with a zipper end cap. So this is a great way that you can close up your bag. And then inside, I did a slip pocket like it was written in the original pattern and another mesh pocket. I just love the mesh for the beach, especially if like sand gets on it. I find that it's just so helpful. And the fact that this entire bag is waterproof, water resistant. For the lining, I did ripstop. Again, I didn't interface anything. And the last change is I made it a drop-in lining. So originally this bag is turned. So I have shown you how you could do that as a drop-in as well. I love that I can just like crumple this up. I can throw it in the trunk of my car. I can grab it when I'm going to the beach, the pool, if I need to get groceries. I also use the same exact size bag. I used the one originally when I'm going to my parents and stuff it with craft supplies. So it's very versatile. And I hope you enjoy the pattern. Thank you so much to all the other participants. I will have a link in the description. If you are catching this before July 15th, you can use the code Marathon30 to save 30% off the pattern. Or after that, you can use YouTube 10 to save 10%. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, I'd love if you follow or if you give me a thumbs up. It does help my channel grow. I appreciate it so much. Thanks. All right, so I have my pieces laid out. I am doing a very modified version. So for the exterior, I am using our Majestic nylon fabric, which has that bonded nylon on the exterior, and then the backside has that bonded fabric on it. I'm not interfacing it, which means that it will keep it wrinkle resistant, and it is also waterproof. So it's a perfect bag for the pool or the beach, or perfect material to use. And for the interior, I am using ripstop. This is just some ripstop that I had got at Joann's. It is very thin, but I want to make this bag like something squishy that I can just throw in my trunk of my car. I'm not worried about structure. So I am going to show how I make a recessed zipper panel. So I have 2 pieces cut for the exterior and the lining, and I have cut them to 15 inches long and 2.5 inches wide. So that should accommodate for seam allowances. It should fit nicely in the distance that I have. I have multiple mesh pockets. I'm going to change them up. So instead of zipper pockets on the outside and one inside, I am going to do 2 mesh pockets on the outside, 1 on the inside. I'm also going to do a slip pocket on the inside. So I'm going to use the Majestic nylon for the exterior of that slip pocket and then the ripstop for the lining. And so then I have my lining pieces. I had cut them 2.5 inches or 2 inches shorter than the pattern piece. And then I have cut 2.5 inches wide strips of the exterior. That should give me enough space with the seam allowance that I can insert the recessed zipper panels in. So it might look a little bit funny or might be a little confusing now, but you'll see what I mean as I go along with the pattern. So these are all the things that I am using. I'm also going to do a drop-in lining. It is very different from how the pattern is written, but I wanted to show how you could make this really versatile and switch it up. And I do have the video to go along with the original pattern. Okay, and I don't have a lot of hardware. I'm not doing the crossbody strap. So I have 1.5 inch wide seatbelt webbing. I'm going to use that for the handles. I'm also going to use it as a trim since I am not using a vinyl for the bottom. I'm going to use this to hide the edges of my bottom of my mesh pocket. So you'll see what I mean with that, as well as the grab handles. I have fold over elastic. That is going to be on top of the mesh pockets to add the trim. I have a zipper. This is our black Majestic tape. You can see that when the light hits it, it has some iridescence. So depending on the lighting and the fabrics it's near, kind of picks up different colors. So I'm going to use that for the recessed zipper panel top. I have one of our gunmetal standard pulls from the shop, as well as one zipper end. All the rest of the hardware that it shows in the pattern, I'm leaving off those zip pockets and crossbody strap. So this is all that I'll be using. And now as far as tools, I have plenty of clips. I'm using this Tex 35 polyester bonded thread from Wizardry Stitchery. I have my seam ripper stiletto combo. I am going to use a 9014 Microtex needle. It might be a little big because I'm not interfacing anything, so I might have to switch it down to an 8012, but I'm going to start with the 9014, especially when I'm going through the webbing. I have some double-sided tape, a water-soluble marking pen, chalk marking pen, a silver marking pen, a screwdriver so I can put the little screw for the zipper, and a pair of snips. If I use any other tools, I'll let you know as I go along. All right, so on my prep work. For the exterior, instead of having the 2 mesh pockets on the side and a clear slip pocket in the center, like vinyl, I'm just going to do straight mesh. So what I did is I cut a piece of mesh the width of the bag, and I cut it about 1 inch taller than the original mesh piece. And that's because since I'm not using vinyl, the bottom is not going to get hidden in the vinyl. So I'm going to use this webbing to kind of go over it. And because it's 1.5 inches wide, it's going to take up some more space. So I just added an extra inch to accommodate that. And I've also cut my fold over elastic to about 1 inch shorter than what this mesh is. Because it does like have a little bit of stretch. And so I want the pockets to have a little bit of stretch. So the shorter you cut that fold over elastic piece, the more stretch that it will have. So I am folding this over. This is 1 inch fold over elastic, and I'm clipping it to the ends. And you can also find the center and clip the center. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to top stitch this on just by top stitching at 1/8 of an inch. And I'm not going to clip it. I am just going to line it up and fold it over as I go. If you want to make it a little bit easier for you, you could find the center, clip the center, and then slowly stretch it as you go. Or you could put clips all the way through. So I didn't mark the exact center, but you could just do something like this is what I mean. And then stretch to here. And then as you're sewing, you'll stretch it. I find that using my regular zipper foot works best for this when I'm sewing fold over elastic, and that if I'm stretching it a little bit, it also sews better for me than when there's no stretch. That's another reason why I did cut it that inch shorter. So I'm going to end up with 3 mesh pockets, 2 on the exterior, 1 on the interior. So I'm going to do this for all 3 of my mesh pieces. All right, so I have just putting on the fold over elastic. So I have my 2 exterior pockets here. And for my interior, I actually cut a 4th one and added it to the bottom. And that's because this is also not going to be caught up in a seam. And because it's mesh, I didn't want to leave it raw. I want a nice finished bottom. So this way I put both fold over elastic on the top and the bottom. I'm going to set that to the side because that is an interior panel. And so now I'm going to grab one of my exterior panels. And I have taken a line of chalk and drew it across about 1 inch up. And this is so that way it's not going to be in my box corners or my seam allowance. So I am going to take one of these mesh pockets. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to line the bottom of the mesh up with that chalk line I drew. And I love chalk because it just wipes right off and it's not going to stain. And I'm just clipping on each side to kind of hold it in place. And I'm going to take this to the machine and stitch along the bottom here. I am going to use a regular seam allowance because I do want, or stitch length, because I do want this to be sturdy. So I'm going to stitch along, holding this mesh pocket in place, trying not to go below that chalk line. And then I'm going to stitch up the left and the right hand side, basting it into place. I'm not putting my pockets yet. I'm not doing any vertical lines in the middle because I need to make some measurements first for my handles. So again, I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to do the same thing for both sides and stitch baste in place the left and right side and stitch along the bottom here. All right, so I have just stitched along the bottom and the sides. If it happened to kind of like stretch a little bit and you get like little ripples, that's okay because it's mesh and you're not even going to really notice once we have the exterior done. So normally there would be like a vinyl piece down here that is going to cover this and would also cover like our straps. So in my original pattern, I have our straps coming all the way down. But because I am not adding that vinyl, we're going to have to do them a little different. So what I did is there's a measurement given from the right hand side in and the left hand side in that you are going to line your strap up against. But before we add our straps, you can see I have 2 vertical lines with chalk, maybe a little hard. I am going to just stitch this down, my mesh pocket down, about 1/2 inch in. So that way when I stitch it, my handles are going to cover it eventually. So basically I'm going to go to the machine, turn it this way, and then about 1/2 inch in on this side and 1/2 inch in from those chalk marks, I'm just going to stitch a vertical line, and that's just going to hold my mesh pocket in place a little bit better and make sure it's like a little bit more even. So I'm going to do that for both of my exteriors. All right, so I have just sewn a vertical line so holding the pocket in place. But you can see because of the stretch, it's not lying flat. That's okay because when I pull it, it will. And this is just so that way when you put stuff in, it has space. So now what we need to do is add our straps. So I cut my straps a little bit shorter than given in the pattern, about 8 inches shorter, because normally I would start them way down here and sew all the way up and they would have all this extra space. But because I don't have the vinyl, I am going to start them where it's going to be hidden later on. So I've done 2 things. I've marked a chalk line 10 inches up on each side. You want to make sure your strap is not twisted. And that's because I am going to line it up in the given measurement. I'm actually going to put some double-sided tape to hold it into place for me. And I just want to make sure I'm not going past that chalk mark. That chalk mark is so I know where to stop and pivot on the front side of my strap. So once I have that here, I'm not going to line the bottom up with the exact chalk line. I want to give a little bit of wiggle room because I don't want the edge of my webbing showing. So I'm going to put it about a 1/2 inch above. And then I am just lining it up with that vertical chalk line that I drew. The other thing that you can do is the measurement is given in the pattern. So you can just take your ruler, put it down, and then line it up with the edge of your ruler. Once you do that, I'm going to do it for both sides on each side. And down here, I'm not going to want this to show. So later on, after we attach the handle, I'm going to put a piece of webbing across. So basically, it's going to hide this bottom of the handle. So I have about 1.5 inches where I can really backstitch down here and secure this strap. So I'm going to do that where I know it will be hidden. But then otherwise, I'm going to top stitch up, come across the chalk line, come down, and I'm actually going to do that twice just to keep them extra secure. It is a large bag and I want it to be sturdy. So I'm going to do that for both sides of the handle. Again, make sure your top is not twisted before you do all this sewing. Alright, so I have just attached my straps. You could put some rivets here if you wanted. I used black so they blend in. That way it didn't have to be so perfect. I'm showing you from the back side in case you want to see it a little bit clearer. And you can see down here, I really stitched across to kind of hold them in place. So now from the front, and I'm doing this for both sides of my bag. You could put the zipper pocket on the other side. You could really make this however you want. You could have made this instead of mesh. You could have did a solid pocket. And so now what I want to do is I really want to hide this bottom pieces. Otherwise we see the raw edges. And the other thing, you can see how this is kind of pulling because of the stretch. So if I were to pull this out, you can see that it lies really evenly. So don't worry about that. As long as when you're sewing, you are making sure you're following your lines and the straightness. It's because I cut this fold over elastic shorter, so it's pulling. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of my webbing exactly as long as my pattern piece. And I am going to use this as a decorative feature to hide my straps and to hide the bottom of my mesh. So I already have the chalk line there that I'm going to draw, or that I drew. So I'm just clipping this here and literally following it along. You could measure this with a ruler and cut it, or a yardstick, whatever works for you. I'm just doing this right here. And so now the same thing. You can add some double-sided tape if you want. I'm probably just going to hold it in place, and I'm going to top stitch along the bottom and along the top. And that is going to give me that decorative edge and hide all the bottom of this pocket. So again, I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch across on the top and the bottom of this decorative webbing piece. All right, so both sides are finished. The only other thing that I did is on the back, I drew a line. I did a thick line because I want the space and I can use the double-sided tape. But you could draw smaller. This is what we're going to fold it down to later on for our drop-in lining. And I did an inch, and that's for what it folds. I can still put double-sided tape here, and it won't be in my stitch line. So you could definitely make it shorter if you want. So now we're going to do the interior panels. So I'm going to start with the pocket. This is the slip pocket, and I used a piece of my exterior and then a piece of the lining, the ripstop, and you're going to put them right sides together. This is the same exact step as if you were following the written pattern. And I am going to clip along both long horizontal sides. And we're basically going to sew a tube. We want to leave our short ends, the vertical, open. And that's so we can turn this right side out. Again, because it's not going to have anything to close off the bottom. So that's why we're making those tubes, so we don't have any open seams or raw edges. So again, now that it's clipped right sides together, I'm going to sew both of the horizontal, the long edges at the given seam allowance and using the regular stitch length. All right, so I have just sewed along the top and the bottom, and now we're going to just turn this, and it's quite wide, so it should be easy to turn. If you are using material that you can press, you might want to do that. I just kind of run my hand along the seams to really flatten them out. So now you're going to decide which way you want facing up. If you have a directional fabric, you want it facing right side up. The butterflies go both ways in this, so I'm going to leave it like this. And so I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch along the top. I'm not doing it on the bottom because that's how we're going to attach it. So you only want to top stitch along the top part of your pocket. All right, so I have it top stitched along the top. So now I need one of my main lining pieces. And just like I did for the front, I have drawn a chalk line along the bottom. So I am just going to, again, match this up with the edge, line it up with that chalk line. I don't want to use double-sided tape because this is going to be my slip pocket and it will be sticky if I put it behind here. So I am lining this up, and now I'm going to bring it to the machine and stitch along the bottom. I don't top stitch it. I actually use a smaller stitch length because that is what is holding our pocket, and I want it to be extra supported. So I use that regular stitch length. And the other thing that I'm going to do is divide the pocket. I'm probably going to put 2 vertical lines. You could divide this in half any way that you want. I'm probably going to do 3 pockets, divide it here into the middle. All right, so I have stitched it along the bottom. It's nice and secure. I've also stitched 2 vertical lines to give me 3 separate pockets here, and basted the edges on the left and right. I'm just going to set that to the side because I'm going to grab my next interior lining, and I'm going to do the same exact thing with that mesh pocket from the beginning. And again, you can see it's a little bit smaller. It's going to have to, that's because of the fold over elastic. smaller, so I'm going to have to hold this and stretch it. And so I'm going to first attach it on the bottom and then base on the left and the right. And for this one, just to keep it easy, I think I'm only going to split it into 2 pockets, not 3. So I'm going to take that to the machine and stitch along the bottom, making sure that I'm stretching it so that way it will line up evenly, and then basting the edges and doing my center as well. All right, so I have attached this pocket along the bottom. I've divided it down the center, and you can see that I now have the 2 mesh pockets. So I'm going to set this to the side. I am going to grab the zipper, my pull, and the recessed zipper panels. All right, so now I'm going to do a few different things. I'm going to grab my recessed panels, and so you have it's going to be the top of the recessed panel, and then these are the lining. Also, on the wrong side, I have marked a 1/2 inch in from each short edge. That is because I'm going to add some tape after and fold them down, and that is going to create so we do not have a raw edge. Before I do that, I'm going to prep my zipper. So you can see my zipper is longer than the recessed zipper panels. It doesn't matter. You don't want whatever's your preference to use, because after it gets over here, this is going to hang down into the bag. So you want to make sure that you have not too long, not too short, whatever works best. So I'm going to prep this zipper by adding I'm going to put my pull on last because we have such a long tail, it's not going to be a problem. But I need to turn this to 90 degrees. Some people do this while they're sewing. I find that it doesn't, for me, create a nice crisp angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and you can mark the same measurement down. So say like a 1/2 inch or so. I'm just going to eyeball it. And so I'm pressing it back so it's folded onto itself, grasping that, and then pulling the teeth up so it creates that 90-degree angle. Some people just take a lighter and burn the edge and let it stick to each other. I don't like doing that because I don't like burning plastic, and also it's so easy to burn your fingers. So on the back, it kind of creates this little triangle. So I'm going to take this to the machine and just try to catch that triangle. I usually do that by leaving my presser foot up, putting my needle down first, making sure I catch that, then removing the clip. Because if you don't catch it, then this angle will open back up on you. And I'm going to do both sides at once. So I am just going to base stitch those folded at the very edge of my zipper tape. All right, so you can see that I have stitched them so they are folded open. And now I'm going to take 2 of my recessed panels, one exterior, one interior. I already put some double-sided tape onto the line. So now I'm just folding these back onto itself and making sure it's sticking. I can also put a clip to hold it. And I'm going to do that for both the lining and the exterior. And this is just so we do not end up with a raw edge on our short edges. The double-sided tape is sticking really well with the, what is this? I can't even think of the name of it right now. Ripstop. This one is taking a little bit more because it has that bonded fabric on the back. So I'm just adding a little clip to help you. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to flip this right side up, and I am going to be putting my zipper on here. And you can base this on and then do like your zipper sandwich. I am going to do it all at once. So you can draw a mark because you don't want your teeth all the way to the end. That is going to cause a problem. So I'm going to put it maybe about a 1/2 inch or so. Can you use a ruler? Basically, I don't want my teeth in my seam allowance. So I want it a little bit of a distance from the edge. And okay, so that is pretty good. How much? Yeah, about a ½ inch. And so I'm going to clip this all the way. And now you could, like I said, baste this on. Sometimes I like doing that, but just to be quicker about it, I am going to make my zipper sandwich completely. So I have my exterior right side up with my teeth of my zipper down. So that way when this folds open, that's what's going to happen. And so now I'm putting my ripstop right side facing down. It's very, very important that you line up these folded short edges. They should be even with each other, because that creates that raw edge. And then once I clip that small, now I'm going to go all the way down. I'm going to actually even add some in. Usually I just remove the clip I have and then just clip right on top of it, but I don't want this moving. Both of these fabrics are rather slippery. So this way I am just making sure. And then if you have measured and cut correctly, your other side should also match up on the short ends. So now I'm going to bring this to the machine using my zipper foot, and I'm going to sew along at the seam allowance given, making sure I'm using my shorter stitch length, and then we'll open this up and top stitch it after. All right, so I have just stitched along at the seam allowance. Now I can trim off where this zipper is overhanging, and I can open this up so that, and pull down my zipper to help. So that way the lining and the top are wrong sides together. The right side should be facing up. And if it was done correctly, you'll see how there's the raw edge here. So I'm just clipping this. And what I'm going to do is take this to the machine, and I'm going to start here, top stitch down the short side, top stitch all the way along my zipper, and then top stitch back along this short side again on the bottom. You could baste this side over here, the other long edge. You could baste it closed if you want. It's not necessary because it's going to be sewn into a seam allowance, but if it helps you, baste that as well. So again, we're going to top stitch the short side all along the zipper and then the bottom short side. All right, so here I have one side of my recessed zipper panel. You can see the short edges, how they do not have any raw edges. It looks really nice, really happy with how it looks. So now you're just going to repeat that same exact process for your other side. You want to make sure that when you are putting these together, you're definitely lining up so that way they are even on both sides. So I'm going to do this part off camera because it's the exact same step as this side here. All right, so I have just finished top stitching both sides of the zippers. Now I'm going to do two things to finish the zipper. First, I am going to add my zipper pull. You absolutely do not want to forget that step. I'm finding it easier just to add it at the end because that way I don't have to worry about moving it while I am stitching or top stitching or anything like that. And you can see it goes all the way up to the end. It doesn't pull off. You definitely want to double check that. The other thing is I have my zipper end cap here. You could make like your own zipper tab. I just find these easier. So what I do is I fold the tape on itself. So I fold like the left side under, then the right side. You could put some double-sided tape. A lot of people put glue into the zipper cap. I've never had an issue. And this is also pretty like a wide one that I carry in the shop. So once I have that folded, I put the cap on and press as far as it can go. Make sure it's as deep as it can. And then same thing, I have a magnetic screwdriver here with a little tiny screw on it already. You could put some Loctite on it. I am not. Again, I don't want to jinx myself, but I've never had a problem with them coming off. The screw goes through the multiple layers. I can like feel it going in. And I'm just screwing it down as tight as possible. And you can give it a tug and you can feel it's holding. So now that this is done, we need to attach it to our lining panel. So first thing I'm doing is I'm folding this in half and marking the center. And I'm doing that for each side. Okay. And then I'm just going to set it to the side for a second because I need my lining pieces and I need to find the center. So I'm going to find the centers of here, and also you can mark the centers of these, but this is going to be like the placard that goes up top. So if you want to find the center here as well, you can do that. Not a requirement because it should be the same measurement as your piece. All right, so I have marked my center and I put one pull on instead of two. So if you want your zipper going a certain way, you want to think about this. So I want my zipper opening to the left, and when I look in the bag, I'm going to see this slip pocket. So up top, I have my center marked. And so now I'm just going to line up my center with that zipper placket center. And I'm just clipping all the way across. And so you could base this on, but I am going to do 2 steps at once. All right, so I have it clipped, but now I'm going to take one of these other pieces here, and this is going to be the lining piece on top. It's going to sandwich our zipper, or zipper placket, I should say. So I am just lining this up with the edge, and then I'm going to just gently lift these clips and re-clip that piece right side facing down. And when I cut this, I cut it with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you want to make sure that when you are after you attach this, when you fold this open, this length here, or this height, should be the same as your exterior. So you just want to double check your math, make sure you did it correctly. So I am going to do 2 things. I am going to bring this to the machine, and I am going to stitch all the way across at the given seam allowance, or actually at a 1/2 inch, because this is an adaptation to the pattern, so it's not given in the pattern. And then I am going to press this open with my seam allowance pointing up and top stitch across, and that is going to give us this nice look like this at the end. So again, I'm stitching all the way across my regular stitch length, then opening it up and top stitching. All right, so I have just stitched this on and folded it open and top stitched across. So you can see that this is now going to be one side of the lining. So now I'm turning this the opposite way. I need my other lining. I already have my center marked. I'm going to match my centers and clip them together. And I'm going to repeat the same exact process that I just did for this side here. All right, so I just finished attaching the second side. So now this is what it looks like. And you can see you can unzip it. And I'm doing that because now we need to sew up the sides. And you might want to line up the bottom first, sew it at the given seam allowance, and then open up your seam and top stitch along the bottom. I'm going to do that because I'm doing the drop-in lining, and I just think it will sit nicer. The other option is that you don't have to do that at all, and you could sew up all 3 sides at once. So this is right sides together already, just because of how the zipper placket is put on, or not placket, the recessed zipper. So I already have it right sides together. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to take this in the machine. I'm going to stitch it closed at the given seam allowance on the bottom. And then I'm going to butterfly open my seam and top stitch on each side. And that's just so it will lay flat in my bag later on. All right, so I have just top stitched my seam allowance open. This is just gonna let it lay nicer in the bag. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to zip this just because it makes it easier. And I'm gonna line up the left and the right sides. You wanna make sure that your zipper tail is not hanging out. And I'm just lining up where the top, where I had that seam. And we're going to close up our edges. And I'm going to use the given seam allowance. In the pattern, I have you like taper in for the lining. We're doing a drop in, so you can still taper it in to help it sit a little bit better. But the number one most important thing is that you need to start at the same exact seam allowance for your lining that you're going to use for your for your exterior. Otherwise, when you go to do this, your bag is not going to match up, and that will be a big problem. So I am just going to use the same seam allowance for the sides that I do on the lining as the exterior. I'm not worried so much because this is meant to be like a very squishy bag. I want this so I could like ball it up, throw it in the trunk of my car, call it a day. So it doesn't matter to me if the lining is not so like perfectly fitting. But if you understand what I'm talking about with tapering and you want to do that, it's definitely personal choice. So I'm going to bring it to the machine and stitch along the left and the right sides, closing up this lining. All right, so I've just sealed up both the left and the right side. I do suggest if you're doing this to put the side with the mesh facing up so you can see it. Over here, it shifted a little bit, and that was because I was sewing at like this and I couldn't tell. Because the mesh has that stretchy fold over elastic that's kind of pulling it. But otherwise it turned out okay. So now we're going to box our corners. So I'm just lining up my center seam with the side seam, and I'm going to open up my seams. You could also nest them, and I am just clipping them close. And then I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and sew across both sides. I'm going to do the same for the opposite side at the same seam allowance that I used for the left and the right hand side. All right, so I have just boxed my corners on the bottom. So they look great. If you open this up, you can check. You want to make sure that you have caught everything. And I did. It looks really good. So this is the lining. So I'm going to set this to the side. And I'm going to follow the same exact steps to attach my exteriors. The only difference is that I don't think I'm going to top stitch this open. I am just going to sew the ones. So for the exterior, I am going to sew the left side, the bottom, and the right side all at the same time. Box my bottoms, making sure that I'm using the same seam allowance as I did for my lining, at least at the start up here, or otherwise our pieces will not match up. All right, so I have just sewed up along the left and right side. I sewed along the bottom and I boxed my corners. Now to do the drop-in lining, this is going to have to be turned right side out. But before that, I have added some double-sided tape across my line here. And I am going to fold this top edge down to that line. And I think it's just going to be easier to do this before I turn this right side out. So I'm opening up the seam here just to make it a little bit easier when it folds down. And I am using double-sided tape. It's not the super sticky kind. So I am just going to put a couple clips to kind of help hold it. Although it's actually sticking better than when I was doing the recessed zipper panel. So that's good. And so I'm going to do this for both sides. And then I'm going to turn this right side facing out. So I'm going to fold down the next part off camera. And then on my lining, I have the same thing. I have my line drawn. This side, we're not doing right side facing out. We're leaving the wrong side. So I'm going to prep both my exterior and my lining by putting that down, the double side tape down, folding it, and getting ready to put it into each other. All right, so I have just turned down the top of my lining, the edge, and I want it wrong side facing out. I have turned down the top of my exterior and have put it right side facing out. So if you have a desired front of your bag, I did the same exact thing on both sides. So for me, it doesn't matter. The only thing that I want to make sure is I want my zipper opening left to right. So if you have a desired front and a desired pocket that you want to make sure you're putting them against each other. So now I'm going to take this lining and tuck it into my exterior. And we are just going to match up along the top. So I am going to match the two side seams. And I purposely used the lining, the exterior for this top part, because I'm not very good at drop-in linings, and you have to get them like matched up really, really nicely. So I figured that if I use the same lining for the top lining as the exterior, if it wiggles a little bit, it's not going to be as noticeable. All right, so now that I have the edges, if you have the center markings, or if you want to find the centers, you could do that. But it should just, if you use accurate seam allowances, it should just line up. And this is another reason why I avoided drop-in linings for a long time, is because like I didn't always sew with quite accurate seam allowances. So it makes it really hard to line up if that's the case. Okay, and I'm just going to continue going around and flipping the lining to my exterior. Okay, so I have it clipped all the way around. So now I'm going to take it to the machine and I am going to top stitch all the way around. I am just going to back stitch probably close to one of the side edges. That is just so that way I don't have to worry about hiding. You could hide the threads. I'm using a black thread. I'm not worried about it really showing. So I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch all the way around. And that will put our lining and our exterior together. Alright, so I have just finished stitching all the way around. I'm so glad that I used black thread that blended, because I definitely don't think the stitching is so even or perfect. Like I said, I find drop-in more difficult for me, but I know that people love it and they it works really well, especially if you have like wrist problems or difficulty turning a bag. So I wanted to show this other option, and I'll put the measurements that I used for this zipper placket, or I keep saying placket, this recessed zipper, in the description. And you can see, opens up. We have our pockets. I just found a string. So I'm really, really happy with this. If I bulk everything out or push everything out, it does fit very, very nicely. But I love most of all that it's waterproof, and I literally could just bundle it up, toss it in my trunk, and ready to go. All right, so we have just finished up the Eileen Pool Tote. I really hope that you love the adaptions and that you enjoy the pattern. Please let me know in the comments if you decide to make one. It's such a versatile bag. I love when people adapt my patterns, so please feel free to tag me on social media or in my Facebook group. Please post pictures. I love seeing all your makes, and please feel free to ask any questions. If you didn't catch the other sewists today, please check them out for the sewing marathon. Thank you so much to the Marathon Society for featuring my pattern. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.